I don't have a single with every album. I never, hardly ever have a single. And it's a fluke, if I get anything that really gets out there and gets played.
He fired his band mid-tour. He walked away from millions. He made albums nobody asked for and refused to explain them. For over 50 years, Neil Young has been rock and roll's most uncompromising voice.
I crossed the ocean for a heart of gold.
Not the loudest, not the prettiest, but the truest. He never chased trends. He never softened edges. He followed his instincts even when they led him into the wilderness. Behind that raw, howling voice lived a student of purity, a seeker of albums that never bent, never broke, never apologized. These 10 records were not just favorites. They were untouchable, sacred standards of artistic integrity.
Is there a particular story behind Harvest Moon?
That's one of my favorite songs because...
Here is what shaped the man who refused to compromise.
Number 1. Bringing It All Back Home. Bob Dylan, 1965. Released in 1965, Bringing It All Back Home marked a turning point, not only in Bob Dylan's career, but in modern music itself. With this album, Dylan stepped away from traditional folk and embraced electric sound, shocking many of his early fans. But what seemed like betrayal at the time was actually an artist refusing to stay confined by expectations. The album is split between two worlds. One side is loud, electric, and rebellious, while the other remains acoustic and reflective. Songs like Subterranean Homesick Blues burst with rapid-fire lyrics and restless energy, while Mr. Tambourine Man drifts with poetic calm and dreamlike beauty. For artists like Neil Young, this album became a lesson in courage. Dylan showed that growth sometimes means risking criticism and losing part of your audience. But evolution is necessary for an artist to stay honest and alive. Bringing It All Back Home remains a powerful reminder that true artists follow their instincts, even when the road ahead is uncertain. Number 2. 40 Greatest Hits. Hank Williams. Various recordings. Hank Williams didn't just sing country songs, he lived them. 40 Greatest Hits captures the heart of an artist whose music felt less like performance and more like confession. Every track carries heartbreak, loneliness, love, and regret, delivered with simple honesty. Songs like Your Cheatin' Heart, Cold, Cold Heart, and I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry don't rely on big production or complex arrangements. Just a voice, a melody, and raw emotion. Hank proved that 3 chords and the truth were enough to reach millions. For Neil Young and countless others, Hank Williams showed that vulnerability was strength. You didn't need to hide pain, you could sing it, and people would understand. That emotional honesty shaped generations of songwriters. Even decades later, Hank's voice still feels fragile and human, reminding listeners that the most powerful music comes from telling the truth, no matter how painful it is. Number 3. Kind of Blue. Miles Davis, 1959. Released in 1959, Kind of Blue became one of the most influential jazz albums ever recorded. Miles Davis created a sound that felt open, calm, and deeply emotional, proving that music didn't always need speed or volume to make an impact. Tracks like So What, Blue and Green, and All Blues move slowly and smoothly, allowing every instrument room to breathe. Instead of filling every second with notes, Miles and his band use space and silence as part of the music. Each sound feels thoughtful, patient, and full of feeling. For artists like Neil Young, this album showed that restraint could be just as powerful as intensity. A single note played at the right moment could say more than 1,000 fast ones. Kind of Blue remains timeless because it invites listeners to slow down, listen closely, and feel the emotion between the notes. Number 4. Rubber Soul. The Beatles, 1965. Released in 1965, Rubber Soul marked a turning point for the Beatles, showing the world they were growing beyond simple pop songs. This album introduced a deeper, more thoughtful side of the band, with lyrics that explored identity, relationships, and personal reflection. Songs like Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man, and In My Life revealed a new maturity in their writing. The music felt more intimate, blending folk influences with pop melodies, creating songs that listeners could connect with on a personal level. For musicians like Neil Young, Rubber Soul proved that popular music could also be meaningful and emotional. It showed that artists could evolve without losing their audience. The album remains important because it captured the moment when pop music began to grow up, becoming more honest, reflective, and artistically ambitious. Number 4. Rubber Soul, The Beatles, 1965. Released in 1965, Rubber Soul marked a turning point for the Beatles, showing the world they were growing beyond simple pop songs. This album introduced a deeper, more thoughtful side of the band, with lyrics that explored identity, relationships, and personal reflection. Songs like Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man, and In My Life revealed a new maturity in their writing. The music felt more intimate, blending folk influences with pop melodies, creating songs that listeners could connect with on a personal level. For musicians like Neil Young, Rubber Soul proved that popular music could also be meaningful and emotional. It showed that artists could evolve without losing their audience. The album remains important because it captured the moment when pop music began to grow up, becoming more honest, reflective, and artistically ambitious. Number 6. Music from Big Pink, The Band, 1968. Released in 1968, music from Big Pink changed the direction of rock music by bringing it back to its roots. At a time when many artists were experimenting with psychedelic sounds, the band created music that felt warm, simple, and deeply connected to American musical traditions. Songs like The Wait and I Shall Be Released blended rock, folk, country, and gospel influences into something timeless. The performances felt natural and human, driven by strong storytelling, rich harmonies, and musicians playing together rather than showing off individually. For artists like Neil Young, this album proved that looking back to traditional sounds could still feel fresh and revolutionary. It showed that honest songwriting and strong musical chemistry mattered more than studio tricks. Music from Big Pink remains a landmark record because it reminded musicians that authenticity and roots-driven storytelling could be just as powerful as experimentation. Number 7. Exile on Main Street, The Rolling Stones, 1972. Released in 1972, Exile on Main Street captured the Rolling Stones at their rawest and most chaotic, yet somehow at their creative peak. Recorded mostly in a basement in the south of France, the album feels loose, messy, and alive, blending rock, blues, country, and gospel into one sprawling sound. Songs like Tumbling Dice, Rocks Off, and Shine a Light feel unpolished in the best way, with vocals, guitars, and rhythms bleeding together into a gritty, powerful groove. Instead of chasing perfection, the band embraced imperfections, giving the record its unique character. For artists like Neil Young, this album showed that great music doesn't always need to be clean or controlled. Sometimes the magic happens when things feel unpredictable and real. Exile on Main Street remains a classic because it captures a band trusting instinct over polish, creating music that feels wild, human, and unforgettable. Number 8. Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere, Neil Young, 1969. Released in 1969, Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere marked the beginning of Neil Young's powerful partnership with Crazy Horse, creating a raw, electric sound that would define much of his career. The album moved away from polished studio pop and embraced long, emotional guitar-driven performances. Songs like Cinnamon Girl, Down by the River, and Cowgirl in the Sand stretch beyond traditional song structures, allowing the music to grow naturally through extended guitar jams and loose, honest playing. Crazy Horse didn't focus on technical perfection, they focused on feeling. This album showed that rock music could be spontaneous and emotionally direct, capturing the energy of musicians playing together in the moment. For Neil, it was about freedom, not formulas. Decades later, the record still stands as a powerful example of how raw emotion and fearless experimentation can create music that feels alive and timeless. Number 9. Bert Jansch. Bert Jansch, 1965. Released in 1965, Bert Jansch's self-titled debut album quietly became one of the most influential folk records of its time. With just his voice and acoustic guitar, Jansch created music that felt intimate, dark, and deeply personal. Songs like Needle of Death and Strolling Down the Highway showcased his unique finger-picking style, blending traditional folk with blues influences. His playing was intricate yet natural, never flashy, always serving the mood of the song. For musicians like Neil Young, Jansch proved that an acoustic guitar alone could carry powerful emotion. His songs often explored themes of addiction, loneliness, and wandering, giving folk music a deeper, more haunting tone. Though not a mainstream star, Bert Jansch's influence spread quietly through generations of musicians, showing that sometimes the most powerful music speaks in a quiet voice. Number 10. A Love Supreme, John Coltrane, 1965. Released in 1965, A Love Supreme stands as one of the most spiritual and powerful albums in jazz history. John Coltrane created the record as a musical expression of gratitude and devotion, turning the album into a deeply personal journey rather than simple entertainment. Divided into 4 movements, acknowledgement, resolution, pursuance, and psalm, the album unfolds like a prayer, with Coltrane's saxophones searching, rising, and reaching for something beyond words. The music feels intense yet focused, driven by emotion and spiritual purpose. For artists like Neil Young, this album showed that true greatness requires complete commitment to one's vision, even if not everyone understands it. Coltrane played with total honesty, following his artistic path without compromise. A Love Supreme remains timeless because it captures a musician striving for something bigger than success, a connection between music, spirit, and truth.